Tuyeni. I will hand over to you. I don't know if you want to have an introduction with Badru, the president of the ICCB African section. Badru.
Thanks, Meg. I wasn't supposed to be, actually. I was supposed to be that fly on the wall.
Okay.
But now that I have the space, I think I can say a few words. My name is Mwezi Badru Mgera. I am the president of the Society for Conservation Biology, the Africa section. And also I chair the steering committee for the International Congress for Conservation Biology, the year 2023. So good to have you all here. And yeah, I thank Tuyeni, who's over and over again offered to deliver this training workshop for us, and then to Margaret for organizing and making sure that everything is in place for us to have this workshop today. So yeah, I wish you good abstract writing and have fun. Enjoy the session. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Badru. Tuyeni, welcome. I believe you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
It's been long waited.
Yeah. Here we are. Yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Badru. Thanks to the Africa section of the Society for just providing this training and making it possible for people just before the abstract closing date. As it looms upon us, we have a chance to put together an abstract that will most likely make it through the review process. So it's exciting to see how many of you are here and where you're all from. Thank you for joining. And by the end of the session, I hope you'll have enough notes and scribble either directly on paper or on your computer to be able to put together an abstract. And that means it's actually a good idea to have paper or your Word document open, because it will be an interactive session in which you'll be asked even to share some of what you're writing. Yeah, so Tabo, would you please? Okay, Meg, if you have control of the mute capacity. Can someone help me with that?
That's what I'm trying. I'm trying to do that, but it looks like so many people are unmuted.
Yeah, I'm on
okay,
it as
everyone.
well.
Yeah. Could you please? Okay, let me quickly go to the next slide because I think it's.
Oh my God.
Tuyeni, I think it's only you can do it. You can mute all.
Okay, let me try that.
Because you have the hosting, right?
Okay.
All right. Okay,
cool.
Somebody did it. It wasn't me.
Cool. Right. Yeah. So yeah, it looks like there's so many who are coming in with the microphones open. So, but I managed to mute them. Cool.
Great.
Please go ahead.
Great. Thank you. So I don't know if you are members of the Society for Conservation Biology, but I'm assuming you're here because you're interested in attending the conference and in submitting an abstract to the Congress, which is great because I'm probably going to be able to meet you in Kigali in July. So important thing to note, and you'll see it over and over again when you see information about this, is the conference in particular, is that theme there. The future is now, sustaining biodiversity for today and tomorrow. Keep that theme in mind because we want to connect, we're going to want to connect our abstract to that theme at some point. But if you haven't, well, first of all, I'd like to know how many of you have already been to an ICCB conference. Just put it in, since I can't see you, if you could just put in the chat whether you've already been to one, and if you've been to more than one, and then also if in that conference you presented. So have you been to one, yes or no? If you've been to more than one, just say how many you've already been to, and then whether you presented at the conferences that you've been to. So I'm expecting lots of chats in the, okay. But what the ICCB essentially does is it occurs every 2 years now. And it's this incredible place where that brings together conservation professionals, and that's both conservation scientists, the people trying to understand different dimensions of conservation and protecting species on Earth, but also conservation practitioners and decision makers. So it's a really nice mix of people who get together for the conference to primarily present new research and developments in the field of science and practice of conservation. So it's an exciting place to be, and a great opportunity if you have things, or if you have experiences and findings to share. This is a great community to share it to and get really valuable feedback on. So somehow, yeah, so you can share not just your research findings. If you are not into research and more a practitioner, you can share your conservation experiences, the lessons learned, the practices that you've tested and see that they work. But it's also a place to network. You should really be thinking about attending this conference as a place to expand and build your network as a system of people that you can rely on, and both to collaborate and work on future projects. And from these people, you're going to learn a lot of things. And not all of them are about specific conservation. There are lots of inspiring people who come to this conference that you can learn things like conflict resolution in conservation management, or this leadership within the in a conservation space. So there is a lot that can be obtained and extracted from this experience. So don't think of it as a place where you're just going to go present your findings, because that's usually just a 10-minute or 15-minute experience. Then there are 5 days in which you're going to be walking between these a whole bunch of people who share at least one thing in common, right? And that's the conservation, the interest in conservation. So as you all know, probably that the abstract, the call for submission of abstracts for contributed presentation, that means abstracts that are going to enter into a pool that isn't associated with a particular symposium, has been extended. So by the 10th of March, you need to make sure that you've submitted your abstract if you're interested to be considered to give a talk or present a paper, present a poster at the conference. So it's the 10th of March. You still have plenty of time. And the objective that we have for the next hour and a little bit is to ensure that you develop an abstract that will be highly ranked by reviewers, so that you can then present your work, your experiences, your lessons learned to the people who will be attending ICCB 2023 in July. And there is an expectation of something like 1,500 people. So it's an incredible audience for you to be able to share that experience. And the abstract is your entry point into that world. So very quickly, microphone's muted, thank you. Please, yeah, if you have questions and comments, put them in the chat, but at the end, you'll be able to unmute to actually ask your questions. We will send you the full deck of slides by Friday, so don't spend time trying to write everything, and because you will get the full deck. And any questions that are in the chat that we don't get to by the end of the session, then we'll still try to answer them when we send you the full deck of slides as a Word document. And as I said earlier, this is an interactive session, so be ready and willing to share bits and pieces of your abstracts in the chat. So it's a good moment to actually have a Word document open so you can cut and paste from there into the chat. And this year I've made a mistake where there actually won't be an opportunity to get feedback on your abstract after this session. Last year or 2 years ago, we had the e-mentoring program that's run by the Africa section. There was still a possibility to send your abstract and work with a mentor to improve your abstract after you have a first or second draft. That won't be possible, but still there are only 28 of you or 25. So if you send me an email, and that's not my email, I'll put it at the end of the talk. I'm willing to, take a quick look and just give you a couple of pointers on how to improve it if it actually needs improvement. Okay, so the reviewers. Your abstract will be reviewed by 3 people. And there's 3 things that they will look at. They will look at whether it's relevant to conservation, the material that you want to present, and whether you're able to link it to the year's Congress theme. So if you remember what the Congress theme is, Badru, what's the Congress theme?
The future is now.
Now. It's not tomorrow. The future is now. And then there's a little extra after that. So look at the little extra, which I usually have in my head, but I don't this year. Because you want to sort of have
I can share it with you. The future is now, sustaining biodiversity for today and tomorrow.
Exactly. Thank you. So try to already now think, okay, to what extent can I link my work to this sustaining biodiversity for today and tomorrow? This idea of long term, this idea of it's both an issue today, but it's a thing that it's a continuous problem that we need to be working on or providing solutions to. So that's relevance. Then they will assess it based on novelty. So does it speak to, is it recent work? Is it presenting a novel approach? Is it speaking to issues in conservation today that this audience, this community is currently working on or interested in? Could you please mute your mics? And the whole idea is to make sure that your work is interesting to a broad conservation audience. So remember that the people who come to this conference are both in practice and in developing and generating the science for conservation. As a conference organizer, you want each room in which a talk is happening to be full as possible. That's what you're trying to do. So you're trying to gather a set of abstracts that are going to do that for you. So in a sense, an abstract is very much like, a conference is very much like putting together a journal, except in this case, you're thinking of people in the room versus papers in an issue. And then the other thing is a style that it's well written, easy to capture what it's all about. There's no jargon. There are very few, if any, grammatic mistakes, and it has an acceptable structure. And you can think of these reviewers as gatekeepers, people who are going to ensure that the content of the conference, so the scientific aspect and the things you can learn from it, from the work that people present, is stimulating, it's enriching, and it's accessible. That's what people come for, and the organizers have to deliver this And the reviewers are the ones ensuring that this aspect of the conference will be delivered. So what's a conference abstract, and is it any different from a paper abstract? Well, the answer is it's an abstract, so it's what an abstract does. In all cases, summarizes your work, but it's different from a paper abstract in the sense that you structure it and you target it for the specific conference. So if this was a primate, if you study primates and this was a primate conference, you would write it very differently than for the ICCB, which is a much more general audience. So you do have to reframe and sometimes focus on a different story based on the theme of the conference and the kind of people who come. So just like when you restructure your abstract or you structure your narrative based on a different journal that you're interested in submitting your paper to or your manuscript to, it's the same with a conference. It's different for different, you're going to change it for different conferences. And so do not think you just cut and paste and the same abstract over and over again for different conferences. After your title, the abstract in the abstract book or in the program will be the component that decides for many people whether they'll actually attend your presentation or visit your poster. So you can think of it as the nectar. So your title is sort of the flower and all its beautiful colors, but then they will dive into the abstract and say, okay, nice title, but this is not really what I'm interested in. Or nice title, and yes, it's exactly what I'm interested in. And so I will take it as a talk or a poster presentation that I want to visit. So it's your communication tool, first with the reviewers, and then after that with the rest of the participants. So here, I don't expect you to look at this, but when we used to print the program book, this is the way they look. There were wonderful things to walk around in, and in the night before, you sort of look and see which talks you're going to go to. Now you do all this electronically, and when there are apps, and I don't know if ICCB will have an app this year, but it just becomes this additional information that we use to decide, okay, I'm going there or not. So it's really, really important that you communicate well with your abstract. And then, of course, I don't know why they're called abstracts, but there is nothing really abstract about abstracts. They are extremely solid, clear text that effectively summarizes what you're going to present at the conference. They give a reviewer really good sense, okay, this is precisely what we want, and here's a theme that we wanted, and here's where we're going to locate it in the program together with these other abstracts that talk about something similar, right? And so again, make it easy for the reviewer to connect your work with the theme, and not just the main big theme, but there are always sub-themes. So you might be talking about conservation in general, but then very specifically about perhaps primate conservation, or very specifically about a certain region of the world or a certain biome, right? So you want to be able to make it easy for reviewers to know where to locate your work in the overall program. And you're here because you want to know how to develop this abstract, I'm assuming. So we'll go, it's a 5-6 step process, and we'll go through each one of them. So the first, okay. So the first step is finding out what the Congress is actually asking for when they ask for the abstract. how long should it be, what information needs to be in it, and so forth. Then you need to decide, what is it about your work that you actually want to share at this conference? You can't share your whole research. You can't share your whole experience. You want to really focus on something small, well, something manageable. And you want to do that because you have really very little time to present it in. And so if it's too general, you don't really get into the interesting details. And you want to use it as the anchor to be able to have other discussions with people as you build your network. So you really, really want to think about, what is it that I want to present here? What is it that I want to become my conversation starter with people at the conference? So when they look through and when they find me and when I'm, getting coffee and talking to somebody, this will be sort of a primary important thing about me that I will start conversations with, or I will continue conservations with. And once you figure that out, you want to outline, why is this interesting to other people? So it's interesting to you, this is what you, but why is it interesting to this general audience that would come to an ICCB? Once you figure that out, and of course it's an iterative process between 2 and 3, that the step 4 is you start writing a first draft, you improve it, you start checking for grammar at that point. Before that, don't bother. Then you develop the title, and I know a lot of people think of starting with a title. I like to end with a title because I think sometimes when you start with a title, you get caught up in trying to do something that fits your title, and then you deviate from step 2 and 3, which is, what is it that you want to share and what would be interesting to the audience? And finally, you submit it. And you wait and it gets reviewed and you're in. So what are the typical kinds of information that are in most abstracts? So you want to present the context in which your work is embedded. So you want to start also with a general topic that becomes a hook that attracts sort of this larger audience to your topic, or that people can relate to, and then the specific topic of your research. So what the sub issue within the general topic that you're going to present. And I keep saying research, but really it's also related to those of you who are presenting more experience in practice. Then you want to very quickly get into what is the central question or the problem that your work is addressing, or the challenges that it's addressing. You want to give a brief, because you want to position what, in terms of what's novel about your work, you want to give an indication of what's already known about this, what previous research has shown, so that you can then highlight what makes your work important, novel, interesting, and essentially what you're doing is creating the rationale and the justification for your work, for the work you're presenting. Then very briefly, what methods do you use? How do you go about answering your research questions, or how did you go about answering your research questions? Your main findings and the implications for this for conservation. So here I am assuming that you've done something, you've found something out, you've learned a certain lesson, and so you want to share this with this community. Sometimes we haven't done anything. What we want to share with the community is more something we're thinking about, an approach we'd like to explore, and what you're looking for is feedback. That's usually a harder sell for reviewers, but it's still possible. And those can be really interesting talks to go to. If somebody's not trying to present their whole, let's say, research proposal, but they're really coming in with, let's say, a specific framework that they've developed and they would like to present and get feedback on. So it's absolutely possible. It's a harder sell. If that's what you're planning to do, don't continue on that thinking and developing that, because I think it's worthy to not just have in these conferences, not only have things that have already been done, but also things that people are thinking about doing and approaches, new approaches that that people are thinking about implementing. Okay. So step one was to find out what the Congress specifically is asking for in abstracts. So this is the first interactive bit. So I'd like you to go to the website, the conference website, and read the instructions of what is required in the abstracts. What, how long should the abstract be? Is there specifications of what must be in the abstract? Do you decide what theme your abstract will be in, or is that something decided by, sometimes it's decided by the conference organizers? Do you need to have a set of keywords? How many? And even how many abstracts can you submit for this conference? One, more than one? Because then you can divide, let's say if you have two main things that you want to share, well, maybe you have an opportunity to share both in different spaces, who knows, as different talks or different posters or whatever. So just take about 5 minutes. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to go to the conference website and come back with this information. And if you could put it in the chat, what information are you gathering, or have you already gathered about the abstract in terms of what format, length, etc. is required for this specific conference? 5 minutes at 8:30, well, what's 8 here for me? 8:38. We'll get back to hear what you've discovered.
Maybe to check if the link is working for the participants. Is it okay? The link posted on the chat.
Yeah, I just reposted it because I realized the previous one was not. Okay, so here's Pauline, who says, yeah, you can only submit one abstract. Oh, wait, let's see.
Maybe if she could explain, she could unmute. Tiva, feel free to unmute and explain, because I think it's more of a question than a comment.
The one on you may submit, the one by Pauline?
Yeah. Pauline, will you mind unmuting and just explaining your chat?
Hi, everyone. Well, it's a specification that was given about the abstract. They said you can find more about it in the frequently asked questions. So they are saying, they are giving the type of abstract you can submit. That is regarding number of abstracts that you can submit.
Yeah, exactly. So you can actually submit, you can submit two, right? You can have one that is for a talk, and that talk can be either a typical 12-minute talk or a typical 5-minute talk of the speed talks, and one poster presentation. So you can submit two, as long as those two abstracts are not from the same project. So you can't have a talk and then have a poster that's exactly the same project and the same results, etc. So it does need to be two different, yeah, they have to be two different topics, two different focuses, two different, so you can submit up to two, essentially, which is different from, I think, last year. Okay, is there, and how long can the abstract be? How long should the abstract be, actually? Anybody has found out? Anybody know how long the abstract can be? Okay, that information is usually available further into the, well, in this case, I think in ICCB, it's only available once you register on the site. If somebody knows how long the abstract can be, if they could just put it as a chat rather than open their mics. I think we're having trouble with audio. Okay. All right. So I think was rightly oh. Okay. Hi, I disappeared for a moment. Can you hear me, Margaret?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
louder, louder.
Great. I just got kicked out for some reason. But here we go. Okay, so you can present an abstract either for an oral presentation or a speed talk, or for a poster presentation. The abstract length, if I'm not mistaken, is actually 250 words. Once you enter into submit an abstract, just before that, it gives you the instructions. Now, you have to look once you're in, but I'm basing this on what was there at the last ICCB. I'm sorry, because I realize that now I haven't updated this, but there were no requests for keywords, but you are required to allocate your abstract into a theme. And there's a long list of themes that you're supposed to choose from. There are no instructions available on what the abstract should contain. And so you have a lot of freedom to structure your abstract as you wish. And that's really important because, you know, we have social scientists that present at the conference. We have natural scientists or practitioners. So there needs to be some freedom in how and what people present, and different disciplines do it in different ways. So that's probably why there is no specific instructions. But before you even get to structuring your abstract, you need to decide what is it that you're going to share at this conference. So I have lots of stuff appearing in my, okay, is it the findings of a certain research, the lessons learned from a practice, a conservation practice that you've been undertaking? Is it an idea rather than something that's been done? Is it the whole thing because it's manageable to present as a whole, or is it just going to be part of what you're looking at and have been exploring and learning about? Are you going to focus on the actual results and findings, or is it more about the process that you want to talk about and to share? And then in the case that you actually look, you have multiple sites and multiple case studies, are you going to share all the case studies, or are you just going to focus on a single one? All these are decisions that you're going to have to make at the very beginning. And so here is an example of an abstract that I started to write. And I'm thinking, okay, what is it that I want to share? Like, if I'm asked, okay, so I'll go to this conference, and what do I want to talk about when it comes to presenting something from my work in that specific space, right, of the poster or the speed presentation or whatever. And here's some notes that I took. It's something like, yeah, I've been studying the effects of charcoal production in tropical forests for a long time. And I'm coming to this conclusion that many times the role of charcoal in terms of contributing to forest loss is overstated in East Africa, and that usually it's agriculture that's sort of the driving force behind forest loss, with charcoal being sort of this secondary activity that is taking advantage of the logs and the trees that have felled as you're expanding areas for agriculture. And my main message is basically to get people thinking about misattributing all of forest loss to charcoal, because it's not just an exaggeration. It results in this ineffective policies that criminalize a very important household cooking fuel. And it criminalizes the people involved in the charcoal sector. That's sort of the urge I have to share with people at the conference. Okay. And I somehow then have to generate an abstract around that. So take a moment to think about what's the story that you are urging to tell at the conference. So take 2-3 minutes, note it down. It doesn't have to be full sentences like that. It can just be bullet points. And then when you're ready, in about 2 minutes or 3 minutes, let's make it 3, share that in the chat. What are you urging to tell or to share, right? 3 minutes.
Tuyeni, there's a comment in the chat from Sohail Ahmed that please repeat again, what should we share? Due to network issues, I couldn't get it. Maybe if you just repeat.
Yeah, I have responded to that in the chat as well. But if you could start posting your stories, for those of you who did hear what the instructions were, the 3 minutes are over. So if you could start posting as bullet points in the chat, what you are urging to tell. And that's why I want to write an abstract, right? There's something you want to tell. You've discovered something, you've found out, you've learned something, and you're urging to share it with this community. So what is it? Come on. This is the interactive part. The chat is very empty. Come on. All right, this is a quiet, oh yes, there's something. Okay, here's, okay, could the Could somebody unmute? I'm not sure it is. Okay. So Laura saying you need to better consider wildlife welfare and conservation practice. So based on this, sorry, I'm understanding that your topic is wildlife welfare. And what you're saying is that it's probably insufficiently considered in conservation practice. And what you want to present or share is probably why it needs to be considered, or how, or focus on how it's not being considered, what it would mean to consider it. So this is very short. You need probably more material. As you can see, I'm trying to guess what your topic is and what your concern is, but at least I get an inkling that your main topic is wildlife welfare, and that the issue is that it's insufficiently considered in conservation practice. So let's get a couple more examples from others. Come on. Don't be shy. Okay, Bernard. Okay, so this is an interesting one. That if you ever thought that having a eucalyptus plantation as a buffer zone, for example, to a natural forest, thinking that it might be providing an ecosystem that's viable or desirable for forest birds, you are wrong. It actually has no function for birds. And yeah, get that idea out of your head. That's great. I'm getting excited about this talk. I want to hear it. Fantastic, Bernard, thank you. All right, Tiwa. Okay, so rapid human population is overexploiting areas that are under protection in northern Cameroon, and it's a huge threat to protected areas in Cameroon. Okay, so I know you're going to be talking then and probably getting into more detail of what particular land use and what are sort of the factors, underlying and direct factors that are leading to this. But protected areas essentially are a threat in Cameroon. Connecting group. Okay, this one needs just a little bit, this is Damaris. It needs a little bit more. So I don't know if it's a methodology thing that I'm not a I know very little about genetics. Somehow the connecting group membership, and I don't know if that is a methodology or process in genetics. If you do that for herbivores, you get a better idea about their inbreeding. So this is what I would call a methodological abstract. It's highlighting how a certain way of doing things, in this case in genetics, conservation genetics, you get insights into an issue, which is inbreeding, and inbreeding is a concern, big concern in conservation. Great. These are fantastic. These are all really good. They need to be, I usually like to have several bullet points, because just think of your final slide or your final part of the presentation in which you're going to say, well, these are the 2-3 things that I just presented that are important about what I've learned. So in this case, many of you have just presented one. And so you want to sort of have a storyline, not just a point, a punchline, but a storyline. So here is a problem. This is this is the way it's being looked at. This is why that's not correct, or it's incomplete. And here's what should be done, or here's what's a new way to look at it that gives you, additional value, additional insights. Great. thank you everyone thank you for those who shared. Oops, and let's see, let's get to the next. Okay, I'm not sure what that scratch is on my screen. It just appeared. Hopefully we're not being bombarded. Okay, so the third part that you ask yourself is, why would this be an interesting story for the audience? Some of you started alluding to that, right? But this is where you remember that the reviewers are going to look at how relevant your abstract is, how novel it is, and how salient. Relevance in terms of, what conservation challenge does my work address? Conservation challenge. So make sure that you link your work to conservation challenge. Is it climate crisis? Is it biodiversity loss? Is it pollution? Is it a social? Is it racial issues within conservation? Is it size and amount of areas under protection? So you really need to connect your work to a conservation challenge and make it very, very easy for reviewers to know what the big topic is. And this big topic is essentially the hook that a reader or somebody interested in having seen your title, somebody now who goes and says, okay, this is the main big context conservation issue that they're connecting their work with, is this. And this is an important, an interesting issue for me. And so I want to read the abstract further. Then remember the novelty, what's new about what it is that you're presenting, not necessarily just as an approach, but is it, what are the interesting findings that you've uncovered? And salient, not just what conservation challenge, but what is currently being discussed, challenged, criticized within the conservation community that you can immediately link your work to and be able to say, well, this provides insights, this provides better understanding, this basically contributes to something that is current today, and the conservation community is thinking about it and talking about it today. So take a moment and ask yourself, why or how is your story interesting for ICCB participants? And again, share that in the chat. And even if you hadn't shared your initial pointers, if you have, in the previous exercise, still take some time now to say, what is it that is interesting about how is your story? Why would people come to your talk? And particularly people who are not necessarily studying exactly the same thing as you are, or working on exactly the same thing. Remember, you want as many people to come into that room or into that space as possible. So how is your story interesting? How is it novel? How is it salient? How is it relevant? Here's my example. And I do this. I say, okay, it's relevance because tropical dry forests are some of the most diverse biomes. That's where a lot of the charcoal comes from. And this misattribution of what exactly is causing their loss is resulting in simplifying the deforestation drivers. It pushes charcoal activities into an underground market that becomes much more difficult to understand, etc. Laura, could you turn your, could you mute, please? What's novel? Well, novel in my case, it's because I've got these long-term plots that I've been measuring for the last X years, and I can see that, and where charcoal has been produced, and then I'm looking at how many of them actually become agriculture and how many become a place where just charcoal is extracted, and then nothing happens after that. And what I'm finding is that, well, actually, when it's just charcoal that's extracted, then the forest tends to recover, and also it tends to be just selective logging, just. When it's agriculture, that's the main driver. It's complete forest loss, and then no regeneration happens afterwards because the place is now a field of maize or whatever. So it's my approach is having these long-term plots that are rare in conservation work. And what's salient is that I'm looking at the SDGs and this particular energy for all, but also looking at the nexus between the different SDGs and how do you provide energy for all in a country that's mostly dependent on charcoal for cooking, but also fulfill the conservation SDGs. So that's the way I link it. It's not necessarily great, but here's an example. So I would just like you to take a moment to do the same thing for the story that you want to present at ICCB. So I'm just going to give you 2 minutes for that. Okay, I'm going to start with Bernard. Yeah, so relevance. Most people think that exotic plantations can replace natural forests that have now been degraded, and that exotic species and exotic species are often used to rehabilitate or reforest degraded areas. So that's the relevance. I don't see yet why is this relevant is that there is misconceptions, right, about exotic plantations. Then the novelty would be, well, is it the findings specific? In your case, I think it is the findings that your discovery through this comparison between exotic species and natural forests, that they don't serve this function that is expected of them, and thus they are almost like a barren landscape in terms of rehabilitating the biodiversity aspects or the species aspects, the wildlife aspects of, and so this is, and then you want to link it in terms of salience, you want to link it to, I don't know where you're based, but we know, for instance, now there's huge efforts to restore landscapes. And it does matter what species we use. And I think what you're arguing here is that let's not use exotic species, and particularly eucalyptus. Great. This is Alex, thank you. Polyculture for pollinator conservation is so, Alex, you're going to have to work on yours, because I saw a lot of it's, as you can see, I can't immediately jump up and try to comment, which means there's probably too much going on, and I can't extract key messages. So, but if I'm understanding this one correctly, is you're basically making an argument that small-scale farms are able to maintain more pools of floral material for pollinators, and particularly small-scale farms that are not monocultures. And so you're making the argument for polyculture, and both a conservation argument and a zero hunger argument. So how to combine these two? Okay. So what I see, what none of you I see are doing is sort of what is the relevance, what is the novelty, what is the salience. You're going to have to think about all three for your abstract. And here's one. Okay, how do you spot Africa's smallest cat? Okay, this is really good, Michelle. So this is about, this is a methodological challenge. How do you spot these little cats? And then you say that they're difficult to study. And then you present, the novelty is this non-invasive genetic sampling that's aided by trained dogs. Okay, this is cool. And all these other ways to be able to understand an understudied species. Fantastic. And then you're going to link that to a bigger conservation challenge that goes out of the very specific cat to maybe something that's more general, just to capture a larger audience to your group of people not necessarily studying cats, but perhaps other species in which this might be an interesting methodology to understand and learn about for their own species of concern. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you everyone for sharing. And we'll quickly, I realize there's not much time. Okay, so you've just done that. So step number four is you start writing a first draft of the abstract. And there's really a formula. You can follow a formula. So the first 1 or 2 sentences, you introduce the general topic and communicate its importance. That's the salience aspect. Then you emphasize how common is this challenge and why it matters. And there's the implications. What are the implications for biodiversity? And it's really good to provide some statistics. You want to shock, you want to indicate urgency, you want to get the reader, the reviewer excited about your work. Immediately you want to catch them at an emotional level about the importance of your work, or what the potential importance of your work. Then you take 1 to 2 sentences where you point out what's been missing about the current approaches or the way of understanding the problem, and what are the information gaps or the understanding gaps. And here you're essentially setting the stage to justify what you do, what you did or what you want to do. Then you take 3 sentences in where you, what you did to address the problem. So we did this, we did that, we did the other. And you make sure that you have information about where you did this, what methods you used, and if you worked with sample size, how large your sample is. I really want to see if based on what you want to do, what the problem is, if these are the right approaches to have used. And then what did you find? Another sentence or 2. And here you focus on the interesting results only, linking them to what you essentially said the problem was, or the problem statement. And then you finish off with pretty much a last sentence of what are the implications of your findings for conservation science and practice. And there you have a first draft of the abstract. So we won't go into, this is my first draft, way too long. And you will get, because you'll get to see the slide presentations later, you will see that it's missing the link to biodiversity conservation, that it goes off onto tropical forests and stuff, but it's weak on bringing in the biodiversity conservation aspect, which is something I would have to work on. Step 5, you improve the draft, and that's when you start checking the grammar. Do not bother about the grammar and the spelling before that. Have a friend read it, maybe your advisor or somebody in your working group. In this case, it's too late to join the e-mentoring program for it. Leave it for a moment and come back to it later. Usually notice something's wrong with it or something could be improved. And read other conservation conference abstracts just to get a sense of, the style, the flow, and see if your abstract is generating that emotion in you about, hey, if I read this and this was somebody else, I'd be interested in this, in attending this presentation. And then the last step is a title. This is usually just 150 characters, not words, long. So you really need to find a concise way to summarize what you'll present, but also make it attractive. And so you can think of the title as the abstract of your abstract. It's really the shortest version of the work that you're going to present. And a really good title predicts the content of the research paper. It needs to be interesting to the reader. It needs to be honest to what you'll present. So don't find a really cool title that sounds good, but then your work doesn't actually meet up to that expectation. People do that a lot, and it's extremely disappointing to go to a talk and somebody sort of has this really fancy title or this interesting capturing title, but then you go there or you read the abstract like, nah, they don't really do what they promise in the title. It should contain important keywords that will make it easier to be located during a keyword search. If somebody, remember, you can search for abstracts based on keywords. So key terminology or concepts that you want that someone might use to search, you want to make sure that they're in your title. So here's examples of me trying out different titles. They're all fulfill the 150 characters, but some are longer than others, and some are more interesting than others, and some are just, some are just not necessarily interesting for this particular conference. So here are options. I would need to try them on friends and then see which one works best. And what is here? Here is also some links that I put that you can use to on how to develop good titles. There's some really good advice there. And then what you need to do is submit. Just submit that abstract. Once you've got a title, send it out there. There is something interesting that happens in ICCBs because the review team and the scientific or the scientific committee is really interested in giving as many people as possible an opportunity to present. They sometimes will write back to you and say, look, your abstract didn't necessarily make a lot of points, but you have some time. We're giving you some time to be able to improve it. And here are comments from the reviewers. We like what you would like to present. And here's some comments from the 3 reviewers that if you incorporate and resend a reviewed abstract, we will reconsider it. So don't spend too much time trying to perfect it. You will have a second chance to, if it's accepted, you'll have a chance to review it one more time before it enters into the abstract book. So, but make sure that you do submit. If you've gone through the effort, do it, right? And yeah, I'm going to stop there. Let's see if there are any questions, and yeah, are there any questions or comments that anybody wants to share? And I'm going to stop presenting just so I can actually see you. and I'm just going to make a quick comment here from Anita. I see, so number of wildlife encountered, number of illegal activities encountered. So this is not giving me any sense of what is a novelty or what is a relevance. So this looks, this is a, yeah, so here's a statement where you're going to have to work on, again, to make sure that you're communicating very clear. What's the relevance of my work? What's novel, what's new that I'm presenting here? And why would it be interesting to this larger audience? What's salient? How does it link to current discourse and discussions going on in this conservation community? So yeah, that's not giving me enough material, but if you develop this further, I'm happy to look at it. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing, and yeah, I see a question, I think, from Fatsuma.
Yes.
If Meg, we can go into the Q&A, right?
Yes, thank you so much for your very informative. I was equally learning despite many years of writing. There are things you overlook, so I think really, thank you. This was quite useful. So yeah, we move to question and answer. And sorry to report, some of the participants just mentioned that they were facing internet challenges. So it's good you recorded, and you can share this recording with them. I was receiving emails from some of them who dropped off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Fasuma from the University of Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you, Tuyeni, for your presentation. And thank you, Margaret, for anchoring it. I just want to ask a question about the abstract keywords, because I always have some challenge in terms of crafting keywords. And I've reviewed for some other journals and other conferences or Congress abstracts, and then the use of keywords. So I wonder, I'm not sure, I don't know if there is a rule for the selection of keywords, because at times someone will tell you that your keywords should not come from your topic, or your topic should not be found in your keywords. So I just want Tuyeni to give me some guide or to assist, so that when we are developing keywords, we really have good keywords that will showcase our work when it is being searched online. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. Well, yeah, so the way you decide on keywords has changed over time, right? Now that you can type keywords into a search engine, right, and find all sorts of things, makes it really different from when journals were a lot more, print, and you were looking for things within a database that was not as wide searching as is the case now with internet. So you sort of have to put yourself in the shoes of the different search engines that are there. So when you're looking in the case, and I'm talking now about keywords for anything, for a paper or an abstract, people are going to find your work based on your title, based on your keywords, and based on your abstract. That's where the search engines search for keywords, whatever you type. So you do want those to complement each other. So if you are, let's say, in my case, working in charcoal, I will probably have charcoal in my title because it's extremely important topic. But in my keyword, I will have bioenergy or biomass energy, right? It's another way of saying charcoal. And so it would make sure that somebody who is not necessarily looking for charcoal, but is looking for energy made out of wood or out of biomass, they would also find my paper or my abstract or my work. So you want to find, so whatever is not in your title and not, I would say whatever is not in your title, but is another way of thinking about your topic, or your topic relates to closely with these other themes or ideas, then it's good to have those in your as keywords. It's basically you're trying to amplify the total possible way that people can find your work by relating it to as wide of a topic as possible. So you might have, let's say, human wildlife conflict. So you would have human nature interactions as a keyword, but in your title, you would have human wildlife conflict, right? So this, there's not necessarily a formula, it's also an art. And as you become more familiar with what are the different types of people who study and look at your topic, you become better at finding those keywords. You don't think about them much. But it is something that you develop along the way. You also look at what kind of papers am I reading and how are people talking about the same topic, but in a different way. And so then you want to make sure that when they look for the words that they use, they find your work. Yeah, it's not easy, but there is a kind of formula.
When you say it's an art, yeah, writing itself is an art, you know.
It is.
Yeah, so it's something that you have to practice over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you say it's the keywords are your selling points. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, it depends. Now with the way things are being searched, you really have to think of your anything you have in your title is going to be captured. Anything you have in your abstract is going to be captured, and anything you have as the keywords are your extra. You're casting the net even wider. I think there's a question.
From
in the chat. Tiwa.
Paulinia.
Thank you.
How can we present the authors for abstract submission? Yeah, so the authors are everybody who's contributed to the work. And when you submit your abstract, there will usually be the lead author, and then you list everybody else in whatever sequence is acceptable. You need to discuss that with your group, right? Are you going to do it alphabetically? Are you going to do it based on input to the work, etc.? There is one distinction that will be made. Sometimes the lead author, so the person you might have as the lead author, is not the one who will present. So in some conferences, you need to distinguish about who the lead author is and who is the one that will present. And usually the one who is submitting the abstract, it's assumed that they're the ones that will present the work. So if that's different, then you will usually have an opportunity to distinguish if the lead author or the first author is the presenter as well or not. And then Michelle says, I'm still analyzing results. If you submit an abstract and it's accepted, is it possible to make edits before the program is published? Yes, but be careful how you communicate this in your abstract. If you have an inkling of where the results are going and what is going to be the main finding, focus on that. And then, because yes, you will have an opportunity to review your abstract before the program is published. They will send you an email and let you know there's an editing moment period that you usually get. And I'm saying, yeah, be careful how you communicate that, because if it looks like something, reviewers are really concerned about submitting something that then by the time it's presented, the analysis has actually not yet been done. So somebody's actually now presenting sort of an incomplete work, and that can be very, very frustrating to the audience, and then they complain about it to the scientific committee. So make sure that you are really going to have your analysis done basically think about in the next month, because that's sort of the time period that you'll have between acceptance and then being able to edit your abstract. So yeah, the sooner you can get to that, the better, and the more of an inkling that you have about what the findings are, put that in your abstract. So it doesn't look like you're still analyzing. So do say its preliminary findings show that blah, blah, blah. Let's see. If someone is still conducting his or her research or analyzing the results, do you think she would prepare an abstract as well? No, so forget about published. Your work does not to be published for it to be novel. There are lots of people doing amazing new things today without publishing it in the way we think about publication. What the story needs to be is complete. Your abstract needs to present a complete story. If you can do that without yet having analyzed your results, that's fine. Remember that you don't always have to focus on the results. The results can be sort of like an additional information, but it might be the way you're presenting or the kind of problem that you're focusing on that's interesting. So sort of in the same way as Michelle, if you can get your analysis done in the next month, go ahead and do that. But otherwise, you might want to twist or change your framing so that you're focusing more on maybe the problem. And you're using this opportunity to discuss, to be able to get feedback on the problem or the framing of the problem, and not so much on the actual result of your finding. That's a conversation builder that you want to have to bring with you, not necessarily your results. When you're there, you'll have your results. And in addition to that, I also found blah, blah, blah. But my main thing that I want to share with you here is the problematization of the challenge or the issue, the way you're approaching it, and so forth. Those are all also extremely valid and important things to bring to a conference like this one. Great. Looks like it's quiet on the questions, and it's 9:30.
Right.
Yeah,
on
thank
top
you,
of the
everyone.
hour, right?
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much. Unless there's any more pressing, burning question. Of course, you are meant to share your email address, Tuyeni.
Let me put it down here.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to share the presentation with Meg, and Meg, I guess you will, yeah. And since we answered all the questions here, then there won't be an extra Word file with questions that weren't responded to.
No, at the moment, no, but then I think your email is available. Mine is available. I'm the one who was sending out the invitation. So, and Badru's as well. So feel free to reach out. If you really pressed for help, we are here to help you. And Tuyeni is really honoring this to give you free assistance. Thank you for that, Tuyeni, and thanks to all the participants. I think we close now. It's been an interesting 1.5 hours of listening to you. I'm listening to you for the second time personally, so thanks. Okay. And I will request the participants just to unmute and say goodbye in your language or thank you in your language. It's always interesting to end like this.
Thank you,
because we are all coming from different parts of the world. Yeah, so speak your mother tongue.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Badru, for arranging this. And Margaret, thank you.
Thank you. Shukran. Asante.
Asante sana.
Murakoze.
Yeah, and we keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. See you in Kigali.
Yes, I'm looking forward to, and I'm looking forward to meeting the participants as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll be tracking their names on the on the book of abstracts that will be provided. Right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Super. Take care, everyone.